done fantasizing about what it could have been? Because when you have a marriage like mine that felt so perfect, you often fantasize about how perfect it could have been and what you could have done different. And I'm okay now with how everything has happened.
Y'all, this split is about to turn into the ugliest money fight reality TV has ever seen. Because Porsha Williams might have been living her best life on Real Housewives of Atlanta with her peach, but behind the scenes, things were spiraling fast. Secret confrontations, financial battles, and a prenup ruling flipped everything upside down. And it wasn't just about money. Immigration scandals, fraud whispers, and public feuds tangled this breakup into a full-on legal war. But in a minute, we're gonna get to the lawsuit that could cost someone hundreds of millions of dollars. But first, let's rewind a little bit to how Simon's decisions dragged Porsha from reality TV fame into courtroom chaos. And y'all might want to stick around because y'all will see why this isn't just a divorce, it's a financial warfare at the highest level. And the truth is that $100 million of a claim started long before the courtroom with a prenup fight that lit the fuse. Now, first things first. This paperwork don't lie, and she's coming for the $100 million, claiming Simon left her flat broke after refusing to hold up his end of the prenup and dragging her through endless legal fees. But this isn't just about spousal support or some petty Instagram clapback. We're talking loss of assets, legal damages, and emotional damage and distress. But her team is saying that Simon manipulated finances, ducked obligations, and sabotaged her career, forcing her back into Real Housewives of Atlanta, not for fun, but because she had no choice but to work again to stay afloat. But to make it even worse, y'all remember when Simon was deported earlier this year after immigration officials dug into his past fraud cases, right? So while he's fighting to clear his name overseas, Porsha's over here building a monster lawsuit that could sink what's left of his fortune. But here's the thing, in these court documents, Simon straight up argued that the prenup wasn't fair. His angle? Well, he swore Porsha told him she was finished with the Real Housewives of Atlanta, like she was leaving reality TV behind for good. But then boom, fast forward and she shocked everybody by popping back up in the Real Housewives of Atlanta season 16. And Simon's lawyers tried to say that if he'd known she was gonna keep that Bravo check rolling, he never would have agreed to the prenup that basically split his $7 million mansion and put him on the hook for 6 figures. But y'all, wait. Here's where it gets wild. He even claimed Porsha tricked him, saying she lied about leaving Housewives, but the judge didn't buy it. And that's how she locked in alimony, the mansion, and her Rolls Royce. Well, Simon swore he signed under false pretenses, but here's the kicker. The judge wasn't buying it. The court enforced the prenup exactly as written, siding with Porsha. That meant she walked away with $40,000 per month in alimony for 15 months. Legal fees covered, and her Rolls Royce secured, and the option to stay in the $7 million house until 2027. But hold up, wait a minute. Because to the average person, that sounds like a win, but y'all know how rich people divorces work, right? Oh, you don't? Let me tell you. If you're spending 6 figures a month just to maintain a lifestyle, $40,000 ain't stretching that far. And that's exactly why Porsha's now doubling down with this $100 million lawsuit, claiming Simon intentionally left her broke. But just when you think that the prenup drama was the peak, Simon's immigration scandal made things messier. Y'all remember earlier this year when I snatched Simon up, right? Well, y'all, he got straight up detained and then deported back to Nigeria. And this wasn't no quick paperwork mix-up either. His name's been floating around for years and whispers about credit card scams and shady bank fraud, and guess what? These court docs back it up. But think about that for a second. You were in divorce court trying to argue you didn't do your ex dirty, but at the same time, TMZ and Page 6 are blasting your mug all over the internet, tied to fraud and deportation. Well, that's not a good look, let alone the petty stuff that he was doing on IG. But for Porsha's lawyers, this was like a Christmas morning. They don't even gotta stretch. Simon's reputation is already dragging itself through the mud. And all they gotta say is, look, Judge, this man can't even stay in the country and we're supposed to trust him with money and contracts? Case closed. Now let's just keep it real. Judges are human too. They read the headline, so while Simon's stuck overseas trying to fix his image, Porsha's out here stacking paperwork, painting him like the worst type of man. Broke, shady, and dangerous to her peace. That's why I'm saying this immigration scandal ain't just gossip. It's the kind of dirt that makes Porsha's lawsuit hit harder. She's basically saying, he didn't just break my heart, He wrecked my bank account and my name. And you'd think that Simon would lay low after that, but instead he came back swinging. Simon fired back with his own federal lawsuit accusing Porsha of defamation and demanding $500,000. But get this, the whole case is built on Instagram posts, where Porsha hinted that her ex might be struggling in the bedroom. Yes, y'all, talking about ED, the weak D, erectile dysfunction. But listen, most of us would have just laughed it off as reality TV shade, but Simon's team swore those little posts were just messy. They were money killers. His lawyer said, and I quote, "These posts were intentionally crafted to imply that Gubadiek suffers from his condition, casting him in a negative and humiliating light." How is having a weak D messing with your money? Is you getting paid for the D, Simon? Well, they claim the embarrassment cost him business opportunities, sponsorships, and messed with his reputation worldwide. Now, Porsha's lawyers weren't letting that slide. They hit back saying, hold up, she never mentioned him by name. They even argued that she used hashtags like hashtag men's health awareness to make it sound like a general PSA, not a jab at her ex. But y'all, let's be real. Everybody with Wi-Fi knew she was talking about him. The timing, the shade, the slit, it all lined up too perfectly. And then your name is already in the mud with fraud rumors, ICE deportation, and prenup losses. The last thing you need is the world laughing at your life. That's lighter to the fluid on a dumpster fire. But here's where it ties back though, because Simon thought this defamation lawsuit was gonna flip the script and make Porsha look reckless, maybe even distract from his immigration drama. But in reality, it opened the door for her lawyers to argue that Simon's not just a broke boy and shady, but petty boots too. Think about it. How could a man demand money from Porsha one minute for damaging his image, but at the same time dodge his own prenup allegations, leaving her scrambling for money and get deported over fraud? The contradictions play right into Porsha's little hands. That's why her $100 million lawsuit hits harder. She can say, Judge, look, he's out here worried about Instagram shade, but I'm the one who lost millions, a stable home, and a career opportunities because of him. Who's really the victim? Well, looks like instead of silencing Porsha, Simon's defamation counter-strike actually backfired. It gave her lawyers one more example to stack onto their bigger claim that Simon dragged her reputation, finances, and personal life into the ground. And that, y'all, is why this $100 million lawsuit feels less like a stunt and more like Porsha's last card to survive the wreckage Simon left behind. But nothing gave her more power than Simon's own words, straight from his interviews. Now, before we drag Simon too far, let's be fair. He tried to tell his side, and y'all, he sounded like a man full of regret. Simon flat out admitted he absolutely regrets marrying Porsha, calling the whole thing a setup. He swears he was targeted for financial reasons and even said that he was blindsided by the divorce. In his words, I kept asking, why did you file for a divorce?
Do you regret marrying her?
Absolutely. I said to her in one of my text messages to her, because she didn't respond because I kept asking, why did you file for a divorce? And she wouldn't say anything.
And she wouldn't say anything. This felt like a coup. I was totally blindsided.
I later figured out this felt like a coup.
Yo, he even admitted that after he couldn't get a hold of Porsha or her family, he snapped and sent her a text that said, this was a $5 million rehab project that I took on.
Actually sent her a text message. I said this was a $5 million rehab project that I took on.
That's not all, y'all. Simon went further, saying that he felt vulnerable after divorcing his last wife, Fallon. But y'all, wait a minute, because this man just said that he regrets everything and was blindsided. But then he calls Porsha a $5 million rehab project? What is it? Are you the victim, or are you out here treating her like a broken house you tried to flip? Well, the contradiction alone makes his whole story sound shaky. Y'all, Simon further claims that when Porsha slid into his DMs praying for him 30 days later, he says they were engaged. His exact words? I think it was targeted. I was targeted from day one for financial reasons. Getting engaged in 30 days, who does that? I was out of my goddog mind to have done that. Of course, I'm paying dearly for it.
I was targeted from day one for financial reasons. You know, getting engaged in 30 days, I mean, who does that? I was out of my goddamn mind to have done that. And of course, I'm paying dearly for it.
Y'all, they said, don't trust a big button to smile. That girl is Porsha. Porsha. But let's unpack this whole thing. That line about rehab project says everything about how Simon views this marriage. To him, Porsha wasn't just his partner, she was a project he poured money into, like fixing up a house that ended up costing more than it was worth. But y'all, that backfired big time. Instead of painting him as the victim, those comments made it sound like he was always seeing Porsha through a financial lens, like he was keeping receipts from day one. And when you combine that with her lawsuit, it starts to feel like maybe she's not exaggerating when she says he left her broke and used money as a weapon in the relationship. Because think about that. If he's out here calling her a rehab project and admitting that he rushed into marriage out of his goddog mind, that's exactly the kind of attitude that matches up with her claim. Simon was controlling, manipulative, and ultimately sabotaging her finances. So yeah, Simon's interview lets him play the "I was blindsided, I got targeted" card. But honestly, it just hands Porsha's lawyers even more ammo, and they can walk out into court and point out that he basically treated the marriage like a money pit, seeing her as more of an investment that went wrong than his loving wife. Perfect fuel for a financial claim. And y'all, that takes us right back to the main point. Porsha's not just suing for spite. She's suing because in her eyes, Simon wrecked her financial stability, her public image, and her peace of mind. And while Simon was spiraling in the interviews, Porsha was quietly rebuilding, but not without showing just how deep the damage ran. She was over on Real Housewives of Atlanta, actually looking for a whole new house with her mama and her sister Lauren. She straight up says she's anxious, like she doesn't even know where she and little PJ are gonna end up living. And you could feel it. But she's walking through this $4.2 million mansion trying to picture her future, but also carrying on so much stress. A $4.2 million stress, you know. Then the realtor shows her a media room and says, "Oh yeah, this could even fit a golf simulator." And Porsha, without missing a beat, goes, "We left that person that likes golf at the other house." But honestly, that moment told the whole story. She's cracking jokes, but behind it, you can really see she's trying to rebuild her life from the ground up. She went from planning a dream future with Simon in that big mansion to basically house shopping like she's starting over. And that's why the lawsuit matters. It's not just her being petty. It's her saying she gave this man everything, and now she's got to fight to make sure her and her daughter ain't left with nothing. So yeah, that's like the mess in a nutshell. But Porsha claiming Simon left her broke and demanding $100 million, and Simon firing back with the defamation claims and prenup that already drained his pockets, and the immigration drama hanging over his head like a storm cloud. Y'all, this ain't just divorce, it's a full-on financial warfare, and both sides, they're swinging heavy. But I gotta know what y'all think about this. Who's really in the wrong here? Do you think that Porsha's lawsuit is justified, or is Simon just getting played? Drop your thoughts in comments below, because next time I'm diving into Simon's secret financial filings, the ones that could flip this $100 million case on its head. Don't trust a big button to smile, that girl is poison.